is 90% mental and 10% physical.
I got to be productive. I don't have time to be still.
If you don't have 5 minutes to spend with yourself, then why should anybody else give you 5 minutes of their time?
It's like the promise is huge. All you have to do is breathe and everything's going to be fine. And I'm like, well. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Dealing with Feeling podcast. I'm Marc Brackett, founding director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence and author of Permission to Feel and the new book, Dealing with Feeling. I want you to think about this for a minute. Imagine you're at work and your boss brings you into a room, all of you, 20 of you, 50 of you, 100 of you, the whole company, and says, we're going to spend 5 minutes doing some breath work. We're going to take 5 minutes and do some mindfulness exercises. What do you think would happen in that workplace? Is that a reality or is that just pure fiction? Well, today I spoke with Sol Cole. He is a former NFL player, now turned into mindfulness instructor and breathwork facilitator. He and I spoke for a long time about the power of mindfulness and breathwork, in particular in the workplace, and the benefits for it for the individual and for the whole organization. I thought our conversation was really cool. We also did a little practice together, and I hope you enjoy as well. I'd love for you to share your comments about this episode, and please subscribe to our channel so you can learn more about how to deal with your feelings. Welcome, Sol.
Hey, Mark.
How's it going?
I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
I'm doing well, too.
Right.
We met a couple of years ago at a mindfulness conference in DC.
Yes.
And then we've run into each other a couple times since. And
Yes.
I've always appreciated your energy. I'm a little intimidated by your height and your good looks, but
Well, they can't see that. They can't see the height right here.
Yeah. But I thought maybe we could just jump right in. And you have a pretty interesting history in terms of what you did early in your career in life and,
Mm-hmm.
where you're at now. So can you paint a picture for people who are listening of who Sol Cole was, is, what's the same, what's the difference? Go
Yeah, I'm
for
gonna,
it.
I'm gonna do my best to paint a picture. So for those of you who are listening and watching, Mark is referring to my height. I'm 6'6", and so to the average person that can be a little intimidating. And my previous career was in professional football. I played wide receiver for the New Orleans Saints for 4 seasons, and I had a good run. Came as an undrafted free agent out of Rutgers University and started my career on the practice squad. So it wasn't like I was a first round draft pick. It wasn't like all the attention was on me, and that really kind of started um, my journey of like this underdog. Like I enjoyed just that path to success for me. It wasn't given. It was earned. I had to scrap. I had to fight, and it taught me a lot about myself and character development, right? And then I transitioned out because injuries. Injuries are a part of the game. It's a very violent sport. I had neck surgery and hip surgery back to back months in 2018. And so for someone in my position, just, thinking it was just going to be a physical rehab and I was going to come back and play like nothing ever happened. And
Mm-hmm.
then in that moment of, sitting with myself and I'm on crutches and I can't turn my neck for almost 2 months, that's when all these thoughts start rushing through. And that's when depression came. That's when anxiety showed up knocking at the door and all these different doubts. Um, and trying to figure out like, yo, what am I going to do next? Because
Mm-hmm.
the reality is you're not going to be able to go back the same person, same player, and it started to mess with me. And then I started getting into isolation, not wanting to communicate, how I'm feeling. I didn't the word the concept of emotional intelligence wasn't even in my vocabulary, to be
Mhm.
honest, at 25 years old. And I really just remembering shutting down and
Uh-huh.
not wanting to communicate with loved ones at the time who were in my corner to support me, but I just didn't know how to express myself. And so I shut down, and I remember like being in that dark space and just like and for a few months thinking like, bro, you can't stay here. I don't know what you're gonna do to get out of this, but I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to abuse alcohol. I didn't want to abuse any other substances and pills that I've seen my peers and the veterans come before me do, because I saw that path and right
Mhm.
and take a toll on guys, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And I was just, someone who was just going through that in real time and didn't know how to ask for help. And I thought that was a sign of weakness. Being vulnerable was not um, something that I would have done then. Right now, that's a totally different story. So when you ask like, what's changed, what's more the same, what's changed is my perspective of vulnerability, my lens of vulnerability. But what has stayed the same is really my uh, compassion and kindness for self. And so
Mhm.
that kind of got me to where I'm at now, and wanting to be that representation and the relatability that I didn't see when I was struggling, during those times.
Nice. And I'm having a hard time imagining you being like this tough dude on the football field with this like zen kind of like calming voice.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
is this
it,
a new persona, or is this are you the
no, I've always been calm. I've always been very relaxed until it was time to like flip the switch
uh-huh.
and get into that mode, right? Into that zone where, you have to, trick yourself, your subconscious to like, yo, we have to go
Yeah.
and battle. We have to go to war. So but pretty much like in meetings, practice, I'm very cool, calm, collected. That was always my demeanor. That's how I was
Mhm.
brought up. That's how my father raised me. And so those principles like were already embedded in me. And I didn't realize like me being so zen and so chill would transfer to this. Like
Yeah.
I never would have saw this at all. But now that I look back at it, it's like, yo, it was really the trajectory you were headed on.
Yeah, you weren't gonna go and become like a car salesperson.
No, nah,
You
nah,
know,
nah,
it's like
not at all.
or like I don't an investor, a hedge fund manager. It seems, this. So how did when you say this, meaning
Yeah.
now, what's now? What's this?
Now I see myself as a mental health advocate. Now I see myself as uh, a mindfulness facilitator, right? Whether it's breath work or sound healing therapy, and I also you know do keynote speaking around those topics, and for corporate companies and for professional athletes, collegiate athletes, and then I have the nonprofit Soul Impact, where I get to show up for young, brilliant minds and plant seeds of mindfulness in ways that I wish that I would have had when I was in first grade, second grade, third grade, because that would have prepared me for high school, college, and
Hmm.
the real world, to help me with practical tools and to navigate the challenges that are inevitable in this life.
Hmm. And so we both went to Rutgers, by the way. I went to Rutgers too.
Are you?
Are you? I think I was RU probably 30 years before you argued, but what did I graduate?
We
When did
don't
I
need to. We
graduate?
don't need to get into that.
I'm fine. I'm proud of my age. I think I graduated
You
Rutgers
look good. You look good, man.
1991. I graduated.
Okay, all right.
How about you?
I was born in '92, so let's say that.
Yeah. Well, you could have been my kid when I graduated college. You know,
The
um,
math is adding up.
there you go. So let's talk about the transition from
Yeah.
football player to mindfulness instructor. I'm really interested in the epiphanies, the learning,
Hmm.
when you're, having surgery in your neck and your back, etc. And you realizing like this dream that I originally had of being a football player is not going to be my reality. That's got to mess with
Yeah.
your head.
It did because it all happened so fast,
Yeah.
and when everything shut down, I had been playing since I was 6 years old, and so to have to retire abruptly at 26 and it not go out on your own terms,
Mm-hmm.
it messed with me mentally and emotionally because I had an attachment. And not only did I have an attachment, this was a part of my identity, whether I wanted to admit it or not. And so there was a struggle that I had to go through, of detaching from that.
Mm-hmm.
So the transition wasn't easy, and I had to do a lot of like inner reflection that was uncomfortable, and it was also an opportunity for me to relearn who I am and to decide who I want to be moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
because there was so much opportunity, and room for me to grow moving forward.
And you shared that you got had some anxiety and some depression as well.
Yes, sir. And I also, to being vulnerable, right? I also struggled with thoughts of suicide ideation during that time.
Yeah, sorry to hear that. So here you are, someone who their life just radically changes because of injuries. And you have a choice. You can have self pity. You could,
Yeah,
which you have. I'm sure you had a little bit in the beginning. You go
yeah,
down
yeah.
all the negative emotions, the fear, the anxiety, the depression, sadly, the suicidal ideation. So, what was can you remember the moment that you said, wait a minute, actually, I can,
It all clicked. It all clicked for me, and I became curious when I heard a podcast that J. Cole did in a few months after my surgeries. And so I'm at my version of rock bottom, and I'm a person of faith, and so but I realized like there has to be more to this. And J. Cole said in his interview, he introduced, how he's someone who practices meditation,
hmm
and he's not perfect. He doesn't do it every day. He does it to help calm his anxiety before he goes on stage to perform, that sort of thing. And so when he planted that seed, it got me curious to, what is meditation, right? And from then, I went down this kind of endless rabbit hole of exploring the world of meditation and its origin, and
hmm
you know, and then I got going down that rabbit hole, I'm started seeing like, okay, there must be something here, not just from a spiritual standpoint, but also from a scientific standpoint, that there's an opportunity um, for how to learn yourself and then rewire your brain. So I began, just starting with something like so small, like 5 minutes a day, just trying to just,
hmm
whether it was a guided meditation or just sitting, um, and listening to my thoughts and just observing them. I try to do something real small, 5 minutes a day. And so the timeline of this all didn't make sense until, it did. And I say that to say because this was all pre-pandemic. So I'm going through this process of building new habits and
hmm
rewiring my brain cells in a way that I didn't know was going to be beneficial. So I get into a habit of like 30 days straight of just 5 minutes a day, and very very low very low reps, like like I said, 5 minutes. So by the time I get to like 60 days, I miss a day, and then I'm so competitive. I got to start my streak over, and
Mhm.
so I'm like I'm not giving myself any grace. Like I'm so competitive, and so I started over. And so next time I get to like 75 days straight, and then 100 days, and then and then quarantine happened.
Mhm.
And so now I'm in a rhythm, and I have this momentum, and next thing you know, that 100 days turned into 365 days straight. Of
Yeah.
then that's when the light bulb went off. I was like, bro, for the first time, you've done something in your life for 365 days straight that wasn't brushing your teeth and taking a shower,
Uh-huh.
right? And you made a conscious choice to do that for yourself. And then I realized how much has changed in my thought patterns in that time. And that light bulb went off, and I was like, okay, now there's something here that you have experienced personally, and I want to learn more. I want to unlearn more so that I can create
Mhm.
space to learn more. I'm reading books that I wouldn't have read. I'm listening to podcasts that I wouldn't have listened to. And like I said, I'm going down this rabbit hole, but I'm also seeing that there's not a lot of representation for me to feel seen and heard the way that would resonate with me. And so I said, okay, that's when it also clicked that I said, I'm going to rebrand everything and be that change agent. And so Soul Code became a change agent for, that representation and relatability for my peers and for the next generation.
Nice. And so you said that you did it straight for a year
Yeah.
and that you had these moments, but can you be more specific? Like, so what the heck did you learn about yourself?
So I learned how uncomfortable it was to just sit by yourself and just and make an attempt to focus on your thoughts and sit with what was uncomfortable. For example, I remember during this time period, I had I had a dog, and his name was Ace, and he was a Connie Corso Italian Mastiff, and I had him for 3 years. And then, during the pandemic, things got weird living situation, and I had to downsize, my apartment. So it was a big dog, and so I wasn't able to like take him and downsize the apartment from a townhouse where he had a yard, and nobody in my family could. Had a fence that they can keep him. So I had to surrender him,
Mm.
like I had to surrender him. And so that was probably the hardest thing I ever had to do. Then I remember, a few months after that, I'm still struggling with that separation. And I'm in my meditation practice, and the prompt had asked me, you know, think about something that brings you joy, right? First thing
Mhm.
I thought about were my two nephews at the time. And I was like, seeing them lights me up. And then I thought about Ace. And then immediately I started like crying. And I'm sitting in my apartment on my yoga mat, like by myself. And I'm telling myself, hey, bro, stop crying. Like, tighten up. Like,
Mhm.
you can't do that. And then I also told myself, well, why not? Like, another voice was like, well, why not? Like, it's okay to cry, bro. Like it's okay to express yourself that you missed him that in this way, and especially it's still fresh. Like the grieving is still fresh. And so like and I allow myself to sit through that and let the tears flow.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't have been able to do that, right, had I not um learn to like just sit and allow the energy just to flow through me in that way and change my relationship with crying as a man, right? Especially now, I wasn't concerned, like it wasn't like people were watching me cry. I was the only one that knew
Yeah.
about it, right? But
But
I
you
was
have a
like,
but
well,
you have a
why are you
mindset.
so
You have a mindset about dudes who look
yeah.
like me don't sit alone in the room and cry.
Exactly. And so that's what I'm saying. I had to unlearn that in that programming. And so that was one of the things that I learned about myself. And I was like, wow, bro, like that was a moment of growth. and that was always something I come back to. That was, a very pivotal part of my story.
And so now you go around in corporate settings, school settings, teaching mindfulness and meditation. And I'm curious, when you're working with other men in particular,
Yeah.
how does that go initially?
Well, it depends, right? I think just me walking into the door, it gets, especially if we're around the same age, or they're a little older, they 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 already know my football background coming
Uh-huh.
into it, right? And then my size, my presence alone, how I carry myself, also, they can read energy too,
Yeah.
right? And so now at least they're not as guarded when I come
Mhm.
in. Maybe they do know what the conversation is going to be about. Maybe they don't. But as you know, within the first 5 minutes, they know, like, okay, I can at least take him serious, and I'm open to just to hearing what he has to say. We might not um, agree on it or whatever. But at the same time, I respect his path and how he's willing to come and share, his story and being vulnerable.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, like, if I get one guy out of, let's call it a room full of 30 men, and I get one guy to come up to me afterwards and say, "Man, like, your story really resonated with me, and I'm kind of in that same boat. Like, I'm going through some things right now with my family or my health or my job, and I'm really just, thank you for sharing." Then that to me is like, that's that's success for me,
Yeah.
right? Because that, and you never know who's in that room too and what they're going through. And so, but I have found that men are very open to hearing my story, and connecting the dots that, that's similar to theirs.
I think what's cool, I mean, obviously we're, you know, different people. I do very similar work. I go around to teach people the skills of
Hmm.
emotional intelligence that includes mindfulness. And in today's world, it's been more complicated, to be frank, because there's pushback, that talking about feelings makes you weak.
Mm-hmm.
There's one naysayer right now that, ugh, she says something like, well, Mark's program, you know, that, is causing kids to have more mental health problems because, when you talk about your feelings all day long and you don't,
Mm-hmm.
blah, blah, blah. Or even another person said something like, when you, when a teacher gives a mindfulness strategy to a kid to tell them to like breathe or do an exercise, that's
Hmm.
basically demonstrating that you can't handle their emotions, so you're trying to control them. So I'm curious, yeah, there's always going to be the
Yeah,
opposition.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
So, what do you think? Besides, obviously, you come in as a former football player. You're a tall guy. You're, you're, you know, I'm not going to say macho, but you're a man's man. I'm
Yeah,
not. I'm,
yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
little. I'm a little. I'm 5'8". I'm a little like a little different style. Um, and so I'm curious to know, what do you think grabs people that gets them to say, I'm going to try this?
I think people notice. People always remember how you make them feel.
Uh huh.
And so my goal is to come in and make people feel calm naturally, right? That's just and that could just be the tone and how I talk, the cadence in which I talk, the vibration of my voice. You might not even really understand what I'm saying, but over time, it's like I'm almost rocking you to sleep,
Uh huh. I can feel
and
that
you
right now.
just
You have a very soothing voice. Your cadence is
Yeah,
very kind of like, you know.
yeah, it's almost Morgan Freeman. It's
And is this the way? By the way, is this is not your mind? You know how like I hate to say this, and I'm going to get in trouble for this, but you know how there's like the mindfulness teacher voice or the yoga teacher voice. I feel like this is
yeah.
just your voice. Period.
This is my voice. This is my
Yeah.
voice. Now, does it change if I get like super excited about
Uh-huh.
something? I'm around family for
Yeah.
sure, but 90% of the time throughout the day, I'm talking at this pace. I'm talking at this rhythm,
Yeah.
and it just so happens that I have a mic, and it's you can
Yeah.
feel the resonance.
So you're at the coffee shop, and the barista just kind of like gently falls asleep while you're making coffee.
It's like, oh, my bad, my bad. Yeah, so it's like I think people remember how you make them feel, and then they take that feeling and they get curious on how they can do that for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the biggest thing. And of course, we're going to get pushback, right, from teachers, from adults, but the kids especially. I'm finding the ones I'm working with, they even with the pushback they give, they're still like they might turn their back and start breathing,
Yeah.
right? And they just don't want you to see that they're doing it,
Totally.
or that's cool, right? I don't want to blow your spot up, right? Go ahead, step off to the side, and then you come back. We don't got to discuss what if you're not ready to, right?
Yeah.
But I think just for me, it's important because this is something I want to always remember is to meet people where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember being skeptical. I remember being closed minded. I remember being, nah, that's just for women, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't really see men doing that. Like that's soft, like you said. Like I'm good. So, and I'm slowly reminding myself, like, bro, you were at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my fiance always remind me, like, how would you talk to yourself at that point?
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
that's meeting people where they are, and just you know, you got to be patient.
So let's go into a little bit of the work itself. Um,
Yeah.
I'm really curious about because one of the things that I wrote about actually in my new book around the work on breath work and mindfulness is
Hmm.
that well, a couple of things. One is that I mean I think, and please don't be offended by this, but the it's like the promise is huge, in terms of like in some schools that I visited, like they think, all you have to do is breathe and everything's going to be fine. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, I can, I've been
That's
breathing
part of
since
it. Yeah.
um, and then there's like breath work, which I know that you do. And
Hmm.
then there's kind of the mindfulness work. How do you talk about the differences between those two things, or what are your thoughts about those differences?
I think mindfulness is a is the bigger umbrella,
Okay.
and breath work can just fall underneath of that umbrella, as does yoga, as does sound therapy, as does all the different energetic practices, right? Um, but I think starting with the bigger umbrella of mindfulness is just the practice of being aware, right? And being aware of the present in the present moment is one of John Kabat-Zinn, his definition of just being aware in the present moment without judgment,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that to me became like, okay, this the baseline. How can we just practice being where our feet are? And what does that actually mean? What does that
Mm-hmm.
actually look like in the boardroom, in the locker room, in the classroom? And once you start there and then you realize, okay, what else is under this umbrella? Okay, breath work. Like I wish I would have been exposed to breath work at least in high school, because if someone would have made the connection to how this is going to help you, you know, in sports, or help
Yeah.
you not be so stressed when you have to take a test, like a standardized test. That used to give me so much anxiety, taking a standardized test,
Mhm.
when you realize like all your other classmates are finishing before you, and you're stuck reading. Like, I don't like reading under pressure. I like to take my time to read. I don't like reading under pressure because you just miss stuff. Like, so I wish that I would have learned how to like calm my nervous system down, in
Mhm.
those types of moments. And your breath could do that. All
Yeah.
right. And we just, if we would have learned the importance of like breaking down the nervous system, the vagus nerve, how important that is to calming like your whole system. Like everything was regulated under your vagus nerve,
Mhm.
but we just weren't taught that. And so, if that was like normalized in this society and other societies, it is right. They
Yeah.
grow up already learning that, and it's embedded. And so, I think I break that down, like I said, under the mindfulness umbrella, and then there's tiers underneath of there.
Mhm. And so when you use the Kabat-Zinn definition, the basic definition, mindfulness is about being in
Yeah,
the present moment. Um, when you're teaching this to other people, is there one particular exercise that you think, like this one generally works well? How many, is there one particular practice that you feel? Because some people also, I've gotten, you get criticized for things like you're trying to push Eastern philosophy. I'm a Christian or a
yeah,
Jew. Um,
yeah.
How do you, what is your kind of go to mindfulness exercise that you feel like for most people it works pretty well?
I think from a general exercise that works pretty well is one that like gets you tapped in like to the five senses. I
Okay.
think it doesn't matter what philosophy background you grew up in, right? We all recognize that we have just five senses at bare minimum. Okay,
Hmm.
so that's again meeting people where they are, and it's a countdown, so it can goes from five things that you see, right, just wherever
Well,
you are right
let's pause.
now.
So we have a few minutes. Let's,
Okay,
people are doing this hopefully not while they're driving. If they are, they can
yeah, please
do
don't
this
drive
later.
and do this. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But if you're taking a walk or if you're at home or if you're at work, just shut your door for a few minutes. How long will this exercise take about?
I mean, we could do it. We can do it in less than 2 minutes
Amazing.
for
Let's
sure.
do it.
All right, so again, please don't drive and do this. I just want to go there on record and saying that. But wherever you are outside of your car that is in motion, just start to arrive in your body. However, you best arrive in your body, whether it's with an inhale and an exhale to settle in, allow gravity to just do its job. Notice exactly the parts of your body that are making contact with the surface beneath you. And for this experience, I'll guide you through a senses exercise where we'll tap into our vision, our hearing, our taste buds. We'll tap into what we can touch and what we can smell. So it'll be a countdown from five, four, three, two, one, and then we'll come back and we'll arrive and we'll transition back into the conversation. So shoulders relaxed. And for this first experience, I just want you to identify five things in your space that you can see. It can be the floor beneath you, it can be your hand in front of you, it can be a window. Identify five things. Don't think too hard. You're not being graded on this test. Now that you have your five things, I want you to think of four things that you hear. Maybe it's the air conditioner. Maybe it's a plane or a car floating by. The sound of my voice also counts. Maybe you hear that drip of faucet in the sink. Again, don't make it too complicated. And throughout the rest of this practice, continue to let your breath flow at a cadence that is uncontrolled, breathing in and out at a rhythm that is comfortable for you. Now we move to three things you can touch. You can touch a part of your body. Maybe you can touch the table. Maybe you can touch the floor, the grass. Now I invite you to think of two things that you can smell. Maybe it's a cup of coffee, fresh cup of coffee, or a cup of tea. It's personally something that I prefer. Maybe you can smell dinner that is being prepared in the kitchen. And last but not least, what's one thing that you can taste? Maybe you can taste dinner that you just ate. Maybe you just had a piece of gum, or you just brushed your teeth, and the fresh taste of the toothpaste. Now that we have moved through this five senses mindfulness experience, I invite you to just come back into your body, back into this present moment where your feet are, taking a big, beautiful breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Welcome back.
Thank you. All right, gotta go. No kidding. And so, love that exercise. Um, I'm curious. So you might do that with a bunch of executives in a company or a bunch of sports
Mhm.
people, and then of course some of them are thinking, like really, like this is what I'm going
Yeah,
to do. And so
right.
how do you get them to go from the eye roll of like you got to be kidding me, like five senses, four things, this thing.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing is for me is detaching that I have to get everybody in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
I have to detach from wanting to, um, because I have to also remember that it happens over time. It doesn't just happen
Yeah.
overnight.
Sound like an epiphany, and not everybody has
Yeah,
like, you know, Soul Cole is here. He did this one exercise. I'm converted. I'm gonna buy all these books
yeah.
and apps. Yeah.
I have to detach from that, right? Because then I get caught up in, you know, measuring myself in a way that I don't think is fair,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, like I said, the eye rolls are going to happen, and I welcome them, And I people come up to me all the time, and just like, yo, that didn't do anything for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I could take that as like personal and attack on not just who I am and my time and everything, but I'm also I want to respond with kindness. I'm like, okay, thank you for sharing that. And then I'm like, well, maybe you know, were you aware that it frustrated you? When did you start
Mm-hmm.
getting frustrated or annoyed about this? And like maybe there's something behind. They had an experience before me that had
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with me that impacted how this experience went for them today, right? There was, maybe some trauma in their past that I have
Mhm.
nothing, and maybe they haven't even addressed that. And
Sure.
so they're still subconsciously holding on to that coming into it, and their heart is closed and their mind is closed. And so they still have this posture internally that's not opening or inviting. And
Yeah.
that's going to take work to move through.
Right, and you're not their therapist, you're their breath
And I'm
coach
not their
mindful.
therapist. Yeah.
But I appreciate the approaching the resistance with curiosity as opposed to resentment or like, "Go blank yourself, you moron," like,
Yeah.
okay, there's no purpose in that, and I think
Yeah.
it's a nice way to do it. I was recently in, I don't wanna mention where because of what I'm gonna say, but I was visiting a town and,
Mhm.
they had invited somebody from the mindfulness community to it was a school district,
Mhm.
but the, it was a conservative area of the United States, and the particular instructor really, from what I heard, pushed, um, a bit of like a perspective, and it really backfired, and it like just turned the
Mhm.
community off from mindfulness. And I was talking to the person in charge, and she's like, I probably should have done a better job vetting this person. I didn't realize, that they were going to come in and like, kind of like do this kind of. It reminds me. I'll just give you a funny example. So when I first started doing Zen meditation, I
Mhm.
was studying with this monk in New York City and there was a nun who was a Buddhist nun who was a lovely woman, but
Mhm.
not she didn't know her audience. And so we were doing an exercise that not I went to Rutgers, but I was teaching at a martial arts at another university. And so I had this person as a guest speaker, and all of a sudden she started going off on, about meditation and mindfulness and the Zen mind and how, it makes no sense how Christ could die for your sins, and all of a sudden I
That
look around,
escalated
I'm like,
quickly.
I am in trouble.
Yeah,
you
that
know,
escalated quickly.
um, and I think it is important to present this work in religious ways,
Yeah.
um, not that you were doing that. It just made me think about how, you could, once if that's your exposure, um,
Yeah.
then it's like someone like you or me comes in and it's sort of like, we got to start from like a whole nother like place to get people back on the kind of bus.
Yeah, you definitely have to take a more general approach.
Hmm.
I don't, put religion into it. If I'm aware that my audience is, of a certain, religion, I'll take that into consideration for sure, and how I choose to deliver, my approach, and being sensitive um as possible.
Hmm. So I'm curious, about you, the person.
Yeah.
Obviously, mindfulness has become a major component of your life. My hunch is that you
Hmm.
probably can do more than 5 minutes at a time. You maybe do a little longer practices.
Yeah, I tend to, average, 30, 45 minutes if,
Yeah,
now, and it can give and take, like, what my schedule is like. It can go a little more, it can go a little less.
yeah. But what about, like when, I mean, you really do come across as like the Zen master. It's like, it's almost like, like, it's almost as if like even if someone is criticizing you or things don't go well, it's you do feel like and sound like someone who just sort of like allows that to flow through you. But my hunch is that
I
you're
think
more.
that was the secret.
It
I
is.
think that was the secret.
Yeah.
That's the secret. When I figured that out, I was like, okay, bro, one, you don't have to take everything personal,
Uh-huh.
right? And once you stop doing that, I learned that from reading the Four Agreements,
Uh-huh.
right? and so from there, I'm just like, okay, that changes everything,
Yeah.
and I'm just not wired to be also confrontational,
Uh-huh. So that's a
and
gift.
so
You
I
got
use
that's
that.
the gift from whoever.
Yeah, I'm not looking for confrontation. I could see people, responding to me in a certain way, and I know other people, especially in my family, who will be like, "What'd you say?
Mhm.
Like, you want to say that again?" And in my mind, I'm just like, you know what? All right, you got it. Have a nice
Uh-huh.
day. Like, I want to, because I know that if I choose to respond with, compassion and kindness, then I'm not also allowing anybody else to dictate my mood. Like that, I work too hard
Mhm.
for my peace to be disrupted, by a comment from someone who doesn't know me.
Yeah. Do you ever
You know what I'm
get the
saying?
pushback though that you're being like it's like passive aggressive, like because 'cause you're so
Oh yeah,
zen.
yeah. I've gotten that. I've gotten that just in my relationship with my fiance.
That's what I'm thinking.
Because
I didn't wanna go there, but let's go there because 'Cause you're
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
like
yeah.
you just like, like, "Let's breathe it out,
I
baby."
could
You know?
I can definitely do that. I could definitely be passive aggressive, but my fiance, on the other hand, she was here, she would tell you like, "Oh, nah, like we addressing this right now." She's
Uh-huh,
very direct, and but I knew I needed that like duality
uh-huh,
in order to help challenge me to grow past just being so mellow about everything. Now, some things we got to address right now,
uh-huh,
and we're gonna talk about this. And so, yeah, you take your deep breath, but I'm not going nowhere. And
uh-huh.
so, but I need that part of me as well. And so when it comes time for me to have to be direct, um, I can do it.
But it sounds like even when you do it, you're doing it through another lens,
A,
meaning
a lens.
applying the principles of mindfulness to your communication strategy?
Yeah, I want to be. I don't do it often, but when I do it through a lens of okay, focus on clear, concise communication.
Mhm.
What's the point you want to get across, and don't tiptoe around it.
Uh-huh.
Also be respectful, and compassionate, and as best as you can be,
So do
and
you
also
think
be mindful of your tone.
so if you're being let's say let's do a real worst case scenario. Let's imagine
All right,
you're
let's do it.
feeling you're feeling like someone is engaging in a microaggression with you, or you feel like
Mm,
there's a like my hunch is that you probably in your career have had either someone make a racist remark or a racist like remark. Um,
mm, yeah,
and you
never
want
in person. No one's ever done that in person, but
to
all that's only happened on like social media or internet stuff.
interesting. Okay. Um, or you've been I mean, have you ever been offended by somebody?
Yeah, I've been offended, early in my career, and I do get in my feelings. I don't want people listening to this conversation to think that I don't get offended, or I don't take things personal. Um, no, I'm still human as well. Like, nah, I take things personally, especially, I'm someone I can be very sensitive. So, but that's a gift and a curse. And so I think now I'm in a place where I'm able to just process it differently, as
Mhm.
before that wasn't the case. Um, and it's just a matter of like, how do I choose to just move through this moment, understanding that this is also just a moment, and what's the severity of it.
Mhm.
Like, am I going to see this person again? Is this somebody I have to live with? Is this somebody I have to see at a family reunion? Is this like, where's the severity of this moment, and who are these characters in my life, and also realizing like whatever a microaggression that I'm encountering is also a reflection of something that's happening within me that I might not be ready to deal with. And so
Mhm.
this is all right, an opportunity for me to grow. That's why I like the you know the conversations that I have with my fiance when it comes to like, we have to actually talk about this because now it's an opportunity for me to like, all right, really do some work within and not like put it under the rug
Yeah.
and not address it completely.
Right, because you have needs that need to be met, obviously, and,
Yeah.
and the, so when you're I mean, do you ever get angry?
No, yeah, I can count on one hand how many times like I've turned green, and when I mean green, I mean the Hulk. So like I like to say it's like I've when I forget which movie it was when he was like I've learned how to live with both of them
Uh-huh.
and Bruce Banner and the Hulk at the same time. So it's just like I've actually learned how to live with both of them. But the only time I get to that level is when something has been a direct like violation of my family.
Uh-huh.
And so that's rare. It's rare that those situations have happened. But I do get there. I try not to get there. But if situations call for it, all this mindfulness stuff goes out the window. I'll tell
Okay.
you that right now. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and and it was also a situation when um it was a rest in peace Demarius Thomas, and he's a former NFL player, wide receiver, and he was like a big brother to me. And I remember when I got the news about his death and how everything went down, I was in a place where I was like, "F all of this. I don't want to breathe. I
Mhm.
don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to do any of this. Like, what is all of this for?" I was so mad. I was so frustrated. I was ready to throw it all away. And I remember calling my father and telling him how frustrated I was about, you know, um, just the situation and how it impacted me, emotionally. But- And he was just like, "All right, I get it. I get it, right? And it's okay. Like, let it out. You know what I'm saying?" But it's times when I get to the point where like I don't want to do none of this.
Mhm.
Like I'm frustrated right now. Like no, I don't want to calm down. Right? That's not good for anybody if I get to that point though. And then I get to points where like yo, I gotta go to I found another healthy outlet for me when I get there is going to a rage room. Have you ever been to a rage room?
I know about it, but I've never been.
Yeah, so I've gotten to points where like when I feel like I've gotten to that level, I'll go to a rage room and buy the biggest package and smash everything, right? And that's a way to just get that because that energy to me just feels so heavy and I don't like feeling like that. So I can't keep that energy. So I have to release it in a way that's healthy in a container that's safe. It's not dangerous
Mhm.
and harmful.
So do you think of that as mindfulness too? You think it's a form of being with your
Yeah, no,
feelings?
for sure. Yeah, if I'm definitely being where my feet are. I know I have this bat in my hand. I know that microwave is in front of me, and I know if I keep hitting it at that one spot, it's going to shatter, right? And so, like, yeah, in a way that I'm aware that I'm doing it. So of course, it's mindfulness.
And, I guess it's probably better if you have that much self-awareness that you're feeling those kinds of strong emotions, like you said, removing yourself, going to a safe place, and just
Yeah,
yeah.
having a safe crash out.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So you are
and
I'm
so
good. I'm feeling better now because I felt like you weren't really human.
yeah, yeah. I don't want you or any of the listeners thinking that it's just always like this. Yeah, my tone can sound like that, most of the time, but I do get to a point where I'm ready to have an episode, if you will.
But it sounds like it's very uncommon, and it's kind of like a moment, and then you come back pretty quickly.
Yeah, eventually I come back. Eventually I come back, but I have to get it out, right? And I'm grateful that I found that outlet a few years ago. That was that was very beneficial.
And it sounds like you have a pretty cool relationship with your dad.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be who I am without my father, and I'm grateful for that. I know, you've talked about your story with your dad before,
Yeah.
and he and I, that's my partner, and he works a very stressful. He's in his very stressful career, and I remember when I was on this part of my journey, and he saw me transitioning, practicing meditation, practicing breath work. He got to a point where he got comfortable enough to text me and say, "Hey son," I'll never forget this. He said, "Hey son, I got a stressful meeting coming up, and work is really stressing me out. Can you send me like a breathing exercise or something like that?" And for me, it was just like, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
like that didn't happen overnight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That did not happen overnight. That took almost like 3 years for that text message to come of me like on this journey. But him constantly seeing the change in my life and how this impacted me, right? He was just like, man, I know who to go to.
Nice. That's a nice.
And so for me, that was like, oh, that was so special.
That's cool. So he's a believer now.
Yeah, he buys in. I say he buys in for sure.
That's so cool. Um, so you've done work, as we said, in the corporate sector. You've done work, just in the mindfulness community, the well-being community, and then you've written all these books. And I just want to make sure that people know about the work that you're doing with kids. I love, you have the Midasol Adventures, and then it's called The Journey to Emotional Mastery. Um,
Yeah.
I think I don't know if I tell you wouldn't know this because I in my new book I tell a story about how my students at the university uh, early in my career would call me the feelings master, and
Mm-hmm.
and it was this. I didn't love the term, and then I was like, you know what, Mark, you are the freaking feelings master. Like, show up that way.
Lean into it.
Yeah, lean into it.
Yeah.
So, what are your hopes for these books that you've written, in regard to helping kids?
I really just saw them as a resource, as a tool. And the first one started with the affirmations coloring book
Yep.
for kids, and really realizing like how powerful affirmations were like in my journey during this time, like during right before the pandemic and during the pandemic. I was writing all these affirmations out in journals on the walls in my apartment and reciting them to the point where it's not only was I believing them, but I was like reprogramming, everything internally just by repetition.
Hmm.
And so I was like, okay, if I would have been exposed to, the power of affirmations, in a way that I also like to color, even as an adult, and I have adult coloring books. And I was like, it's very stimulating, very relaxing to my nervous system to get, you know, 300 color pencils and
Hmm.
just relax and just let my imagination go. And so I wanted to put that out there for a younger version of myself, thinking like, bro, like this would have helped you out in so many ways. You would have been planting seeds for yourself
Hmm.
um, at an early age. And then the book came, Journey to Emotional Mastery, as a way of wanting to tell a story, and eventually I'll tell more stories. That's why it's Mighty Soul Adventures. I'll tell more stories of how, again, we can learn to be masters of our emotions, and what some of those tools look like in real time, and engaging the young scholars in an early age in a way. The pictures are captivating, and it also challenges them in a way with presenting words and concepts that they might not be familiar with, but it also has the dictionary in the background, that they can actually learn, and
Hmm.
their parents are reading these bedtime stories to them. The teachers are actually engaging with them, in the classroom, and then now it just becomes a community that are all being evolved emotionally. And so, my hope is that these tools can can be accessible, can be relatable, and shifting the narrative around um, social emotional learning.
Yeah, I'm looking at them right now again, and it's nice to see. I mean, you think about the opportunity for kids to reflect on these
Hmm.
things, just taking a moment to say something, I am enough today and every day. Like
Yeah,
even a discussion about that. What does that mean for you? What makes you
let's unpack that.
yeah. Or I feel, today I'm a leader, or I will make the world a better place one day at a time. I never was asked to think about that as a kid. Like, what are your thoughts about that? How to make the world a better place?
Yeah.
Um, and I can see how you know, as I shared earlier, my early career was a martial arts teacher, and I would teach kindergartners, third graders, how to
Hmm.
meditate and be still, and I would love, and they loved it. They felt so like respected in many ways by giving them these kinds of things to think about. And I would use like little Zen sayings like, imagine your mind is like the moon's reflection in still water. Like,
Yeah.
and parents would be looking at me like, what the heck are you doing with my kid? Meanwhile, the kid, I
Yeah.
would have them then share what they were thinking and what was going on in their brains and what that meant for them and how that related to them being good friends. And these kids were like on and on and on. And I feel like so much of this deep work in emotional awareness and mindfulness and emotion regulation would would come more naturally for the corporate sector, have we had we learned this early in life.
That's it. That's it. That's how I want to be able to change the world. If I can plant these seeds for this next generation, right? And along their journey, their seeds are being watered, right? By, being exposed to your work, being exposed to other people coming along their path, watering these seeds. Or if the seed was already planted, then I'm watering the seeds. Like,
Hmm.
we're all playing a part of this.
Yeah. So let's do a final 30-second exercise to get people to kind of
Hmm.
take everything that we've spoken about, maybe digest it, and kind of
Hmm.
enter the next phase of their day um, with some emotional clarity.
Yeah, we discussed a lot, and I think one way what came up for me, as you were saying, that is a practice I like to do is progressive muscle relaxation,
Okay.
PMR. So I'll just do a quick exercise in
Thank you.
full body. Yeah. Um, so again, arrive in your body the best way you feel comfortable to do so. And if it helps, you can close your eyes for this experience, a moment of mindfulness. And when I invite you to inhale, you are invited to just tense up all your muscles, squeezing your hands, balling your fists, tighten, all the muscles, your arms, your torso, your abs, your legs, everything that you feel in your body. I want you to tighten that up on your inhale and then just hold it for a 3 count. And then we're going to open mouth, exhale, and sigh everything out and allow your body to just melt into the chair, onto the couch, or wherever you are. All right. So inhale, squeeze, and hold. One, two, three. Open mouth. Beautiful.
Love it. So thank you so much. Um, please let everybody know how they can learn more about you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark, for the opportunity to share my story with your listeners, and everybody can follow more about my journey in the nonprofit, especially on soulimpactfoundation.org, and social media at B underscore Cole16 is you'll find more about Soul Impact there as well, and more about the books on that page and how you can support, of course.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you, brother. Happy holidays.
You too.